The warp is our greatest gift, and is also our greatest threat. It is curse and boon, hope and terror, a raging inferno through which we must plunge, or else be lost. Lying at the heart of the Warhammer 40k universe is the warp, an alternative dimension containing demons of immense power. It houses the Chaos gods Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, and Slaanesh. Since the Warhammer universe is so vast and complex, most of the things mentioned in this video will end up getting their own video in the future. But hopefully by the end of this video you'll understand how the warp works, and why it was so important and yet so feared. The warp, or the Immaterium as it's called by the Empire of Mankind, started with the creation of sentience by the Old Ones, the creators in the Warhammer universe. This sentient power created the alternate dimension which would later be called the warp, which grew as more sentient life was created. It has been described as a dark reflection of the material universe, and as raw emotion given physical form. The warp, rather than an abstract concept, is as if all of the metaphysical contents of sentience were able to exist physically in an alternate dimension, powered by the collective life energy of all of the living creatures in the universe. The warp also provides psychic users their powers, creating wizard-like creatures throughout the galaxy. For example, the Eldar are able to wield powerful and complex abilities, while human psychics are limited in comparison. When humans discovered the warp, they found it could be used across the galaxy almost instantly. This discovery was a major turning point in the history of mankind. It massively accelerated the development of science and technology, though this period would be called the Dark Age of technology. With this faster-than-light means of travel, humans were able to cross galaxies, where they found they weren't the only life in the universe. Encountering highly dangerous and technologically advanced species, humanity was brought to near extinction. When the Emperor of Mankind appeared and founded his empire, warp travel was essential in not only creating that empire, but also maintaining it. FTL travel allowed humanity to fend off attackers halfway across the galaxy in a blink of an eye. However, in the early days of warp travel, it was extremely dangerous, and many ships were lost forever. This was no doubt due to warp storms and the numerous evil entities inside the warp. Human mutants known as navigators were the only ones who could pilot a warp-ready ship, thanks to their psychic powers to see through the warp and plot a safe course. Ironically, mankind in the 40k universe has become extremely hostile to anyone who displays psychic powers, labeling them unnatural, yet have to rely on them to maintain the Empire. The Astronomic Khan is a psychic beacon on Terra, or Earth, created by the Emperor of Mankind. This is used so the forces of man can safely navigate and triangulate courses inside of the warp without having to use navigators. To maintain this, thousands of psychers, humans who are able to use psychic powers, are sacrificed, giving up their life force. Due to the Emperor's own immense psychic powers, he can project that signal over 70,000 light-years across the galaxy. Of course, this isn't the only way to travel through the warp. For example, warp gates are points in real space that are linked to another point in real space through a tunnel in the warp. These allow a much safer alternative to travel, yet humanity is still suspicious of them. They are a mystery to man, with no one knowing if they are natural or artificial. If they are artificial, no one knows who built them. Warp gates come in all sorts of sizes and can be found all over the galaxy, but are extremely rare. Some are large enough to allow spacecraft to travel, and are often found near the edge of star systems or outer rim planets, while some only allow humans or small vehicles to pass through. These are often found on-world, and allow travel to other gates on the same planet or to different planets. Due to their rarity and power, controlling even a single gate can lead to large-scale warfare, with many factions constantly trying to control known gates. However, many of them are also defective, meaning many ships are often spit out and lost in the warp, making them still highly dangerous if a safer alternative to warp drives. Warp portals are another alternative. They are similar to warp gates, but rather than allowing travel through the warp points are location in space where both real space and the warp interface, forming a stable entry and exit into the warp. Therefore, while not necessary to have a warp drive to travel through a warp portal, it's not recommended for a ship without a Gellar field, a device that protects the ship and crew from the warp itself, to travel through the portal. Like warp gates, no one's sure if these portals were simply accidental or if they have some sort of secret purpose. Unlike the gates, however, the portals can be invisible or take the form of a hole in the ground or the mouth of a cave. Therefore, it is possible to accidentally walk through a portal and into the warp. Ships that go missing and have a damaged warp drive can sometimes come across a portal and escape destruction. Despite this, navigating the warp is still an extremely dangerous task. Warp storms are hurricane-like events that can isolate entire star systems for hundreds of years at a time. Demons also inhabit the warp, creatures that are both formed from and part of the warp. Since they are simultaneously a part of the warp and formed from psychic energy, they can never die, Instead, their energy returns to a deeper part of the warp, waiting to be given a physical form by any one of the Chaos Gods. This of course leads us to the 4 Chaos Gods: Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, and Slaanesh. Each god embodies a different emotion or negative aspect of life. While it is not known when the Chaos Gods were born, apart from Slaanesh, they have been around for millions of years, growing in power over each and every millennia. The eldest is Khorne, the Lord of Battle. He is the god of war, blood, and violence. As many of his followers say, Khorne cares not from whence the blood flows, only that it flows, highlighting that he doesn't care about the fight, only that there is a fight. Khorne is commonly depicted as a broad, muscular humanoid, with the face of a snarling dog. However, he often wears a helmet constructed of skulls of conquered foes, and heavy plates of armor made from brass and black iron. His demon horde contains bloodthirsters, bloodletters, fleshhounds, and juggernauts. Tzeentch is the chaos god of change, knowledge, sorcery, and ambition. Tzeentch's only concern is to scheme, and seemingly to no end. He creates plots within plots within plots, some of them taking hundreds if not thousands of years to be executed. As the god of sorcery, his followers often use powerful psychic abilities. Tzeentch is an ever-changing body, with faces appearing and disappearing into his skin. These faces will often contradict what another has said, calling into question the truth of Tzeentch's words. However, his main face is low down on his chest. Above his eyes are 2 massive horns with fiery tips. His demon horde consists of Lords of Change, Horrors and Flamers of Tzeentch, as well as Screamers. Nurgle is the god of plague, disease, and destruction. Although he created every infection and epidemic in the galaxy, he is also the god of life and laughter. His followers are powered by his plagues, with rotting flesh, putrid bile, and running sores. Nurgle himself is a large green behemoth. His skin is covered in sores, boils, maggots, and diseases. His organs also hang out of his body, providing nutrients for his Nurglings. His demon horde contains the Great Unclean One, Plague Bearers, Nurglings, and Beasts of Nurgle. Finally, Slaanesh is the youngest Chaos God, being created due to the fall of the Eldar Empire in the year 30,000. The Dark Eldar were a branch of Eldar that were concerned with experiencing pleasure and excess. Their desire for pleasure got even more extreme. Entire cities often flowed with literal rivers of blood. As their emotions became more powerful and depraved, they created Slaanesh, the god of lust, pride, and self-indulgence. The psychic scream that Slaanesh gave when he was born created a wave that instantly destroyed the Eldar planets closest to the Eye of Terror, the place where Slaanesh was born, and where traitor space marines live. Slaanesh is very similar to a Cenobite, demons who push pain and pleasure to their extremes. His chaos god is an androgynous being and can take the form of any gender, but he prefers male. While humanity refers to him as he, the Eldar refer to it as she. His name is taken from the Eldar word sla, meaning pleasure, and neth, meaning prince, hence Prince of Pleasure. However, in the true Eldar tongue, he's referred to as Sai-Lenthresh, meaning she who thirsts. His demon horde consists of the Keepers of Secrets, Demonettes, and the Fiends of Slaanesh. Due to their history, the Eldar are terrified of Slaanesh. This is because of an Eldar belief, as is shared by some form of other species, that the warp is the final resting place for their souls, and Slaanesh will happily eat Eldar souls. As such, the Eldar, a very proud and dying race, have created soul stones, which they wear on their armor and which trap their souls when they die. The stones are then transferred to the Craft's World Infinity Circuit, where that soul becomes a part of the collective mind. Remember, a lot of this stuff will be covered in more detail in later videos. The fate of human souls is even more bleak, however. As soon as a human dies, their soul goes to the warp, where it is either devoured by warp entities or turned into toys for their entertainment. One method of saving your soul is to worship either the Chaos Gods as a whole or worship a god in particular. The most devout followers can look forward to being reincarnated as a demon prince, giving guaranteed immortality and ruling over a small section of the warp, or even a warp rift, which we'll cover shortly. However, those still faithful to the Emperor of Mankind, he believed that upon their death, he will protect their souls in the warp. Remember, the warp is the psychic realm manifest, and the Emperor has immense psychic powers, so the idea is a bit analogous to Judeo-Christian heaven and hell themes, thinking that belief in the Emperor will protect you in the afterlife, or if you worship the evil, it might be so evil enough that you get to become a demon. The Chaos Gods are in constant battle with each other over domination of the warp and the galaxy. As a result, each one possesses a huge threat to life in the galaxy. Khorne with his bloodlust, Tzeentch with his scheming, Nurgle with his disease, and Slaanesh with his torture. However, the irony of the warp is that if the Chaos Gods managed to wipe out life itself, they would cease to exist, as they depend on sentience and emotion. Another threat from the warp comes in the form of warp rifts. These are places in space where the barriers between reality and the warp breaks down, allowing entities of the warp to travel into real space, but can also be created by the Chaos Gods. Some last for a few seconds, while some can last days, years, or even centuries. They can take many forms, but are most often seen as a whirlpool of psychic power or a glimpse into the warp itself. They have also appeared as gates of green fire, clouds of shadow, lakes of boiling pus, and other terrifying visions. There are many warp rifts, but the most well known is the Eye of Terror, created with the fall of the Eldar and the birth of Slaanesh. The Eye of Terror contains the traitor faction of the Space Marines, along with their followers. If getting torn apart by demons, crashing into warp storms, getting lost for eternity, and having your soul devoured by chaos gods wasn't enough to deal with, there are also the Enslavers, creatures that will possess any unprotected psychic being. By doing so, they use the host's physical body to create a living warp portal. Inquisitor Malin recounts such an event. Just one witch, unsanctioned, caused the destruction of Hive Scorpios, when one of those things used their brain as a gateway to this world. Within 3 days, the entire Hive's population was reduced to drooling mind slaves. Within 3 weeks, an entire continent was at war. And all because the governor thought his family should be exempt from the Psyker Cull, and refused to give his daughter to the Black Ships. The Enslavers are so dangerous that they caused the downfall of the Old Ones, and drove the star gods Catan to hibernation at the end of the War in Heaven, by killing all of the sentient life that Catan fed on. While they are in the warp, Enslavers have no true form. However, once they enter real space, they appear as floating spheres, approximately 2 meters in height. They also have a tough, leathery skin, but can change the color at will, though the default is a leathery brown. A single eye, either red, pink, or orange, is at the very top of the body, though its function is unknown. The upper body contains between 8 and 12 tentacles, each measuring 1.5 meters long. There are also 2 longer tentacles, which serve as both sensory organs and hands. While they are capable of controlling the minds of any Psyker and force them to do what they wish, their power is limited to a range of 50 meters. And finally, let's talk about the Formless Wastes. These are regions in the warp that are not controlled by any of the Chaos Gods, although some high-level demon princes will occupy some of the areas in the wastes. These are places where the rules of physics break down. Staircases reaching into the sky loop back in on themselves, while pillars of fire burn. In the wastes, there are representations of every dream, nightmare, and vision, as well as the Furies, winged demons who eat mortals and warp entities alike, whoever enters the wastes. And inside of the Formless Wastes is the Forge of Souls, the place where all of the Chaos weapons, talismans, and vehicles are made. So that concludes the warp. Though almost everything in this video deserves its own separate video to flesh it out, I hope you understand the dynamic that the warp plays in the 40k universe, being both this source of terrors, but also essential to ruling these spacefaring empires. So with that, I hope to see you in the next one. If you want to connect with us on social media, find ways that you can help support this channel for free, or check out our Patreon and PayPal, be sure to check out the links in the description. Special shout out to our supporters over on Patreon. But most important of all, remember, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.